Rumble by Chad. J-Mac on the beat. Yeah. Studio 17 with Dreams Come True.
Trevent Hayes here with KySports.TV and Shawn Smith, Go Big Blue Country blog and podcast. First of all, it's a pleasure finally meeting you in person. Enjoy your work and look forward to doing some work with you here in the future.
Well, it's an honor, and I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, we're here today at the SEC Bar Grill, and we're going to be discussing several topics. But the first topic that we're going to talk about is the decision of Diallo and Adele to return to college versus hiring an agent going to the NBA. What are your thoughts on Diallo coming back to Kentucky?
Well, it's huge because any time that you can add another five-star to the roster, you're definitely going to be better, but the jury's still out. Nobody knows anything about him. He's not played since December, but his athleticism, he's 44.5-inch vertical at the combine. I think he believes he's a lottery pick, and I think Brooklyn was going to take him somewhere late first round. Because why wouldn't you? You know, you have multiple picks. If he would have stayed in, he probably would have went late first round, somewhere in that range with Brooklyn or possibly Portland, Utah. But to me, what I've been told is he thinks he's a lottery pick. Why settle for less? Come back to Kentucky, work under John Calipari, play with a lot of talent, and try to improve that lottery selection. But you know, like I said, the jury's still out. The NBA wants to see his motor, if it's improved, his jump shot, ball handling, all those things, and he definitely will help Kentucky next season.
A lot of people feel that by his returning to Kentucky, that puts you guys in the Final Four immediately. I don't know if he's going to have that kind of impact. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, Kentucky fans, they think they're the Final Four every year, and I'm a Kentucky fan. But I will tell you this too: this is going to be Calipari's youngest team he's had. He has absolutely very little production coming back. Winning Gabriel is the only thing coming back that did anything, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't even think he played in the final game against North Carolina, but maybe a few minutes. Yes, they're going to have a ton of talent. They'll be a preseason top 5 team, but that doesn't necessarily mean that if they're going to walk in here and dominate next season and move to the Final Four. I do think by the end of the season, if all the pieces fit, they have a chance to get there, but it's going to be an extremely young but talented team.
As a Louisville fan, I feel that Adele's decision to come back, I've never really felt that he was going to stay in the draft to begin with. I think that his motive was to get some tryouts, get some workouts, test the waters, and maybe see what he needed to improve on going into next year's draft. But with him coming back, I think that that's going to free up B.J. King quite a bit. B.J. King is a proven scorer. I know he stayed in the doghouse a lot because of his defensive efforts. But I think that he is going to be the ACC's breakout player this year. I don't know how much you've gotten to see on B.J. King, but he's definitely one of the better scorers that we've had at Louisville. Pitino's really just not letting go yet.
Well, to me, this season he's going to have to. He's going to have to step into that role and score. Dan Goodell coming back is huge for Louisville. I think if Mitchell would have returned, you're talking about number 1 preseason ranking, and having Louisville and Kentucky both in the top 10, it's only better for the rivalry. Same thing as Alabama, Auburn in football. When that matchup is top 10, top 5, it brings the rivalry to another level. But Louisville's side, Dan Goodell coming back, I've read where Pitino wants to play some of the 2.
Right.
And to me, that only improves his draft stock, especially if he shows the ability to knock down the outside shot. And with his length, he should be an unbelievable defender. And like you said with B.J. King, Ray Spalding, Louisville's going to be very good next season. I think they're a team that I would put in the Final Four. In my preseason Final Four, they would be in it.
Okay, you said Ray Spalding. We also have Mahmoud coming back, Quentin Snyder. And I think with Adele going to the 2, it's going to free up B.J. King to score at the 3.
Exactly.
But I think Mahmoud is one of the most underrated players in the country. Everybody knocks him for his weight. It can't be his size. He's 7'1", but I don't know if he may be one of the top 3 or 4 shot blockers in the country.
He is. I agree with you there. And the way Pitino, the way they've been so good defensively, that only adds another element to it. If he's back there protecting the rim where Snyder and these guards can pressure up. Sort of the same thing John Calipari does.
Exactly.
At Kentucky Kentucky's not been they're not the best defensive team at guarding the ball, but they've always had that elite rim protector on the back to erase those mistakes and erase all those shots. And I think that he's the same thing at Louisville. And like I said, you're right. He's underrated a lot. He's overlooked a lot, and he's very talented.
All right. Another thing that we want to talk about is, and I wasn't aware of this until you pointed it out to me, that this will be the first year that the University of Kentucky does not have a scholarship player.
And it's something that I've researched and went back and looked at, and I can't find the last time. So to me, I think it's something that a lot of fans expected when John Calipari was hired as coach at Kentucky, just because he goes after the top elite level talent. And now the Dominic Hawkins and Harris are not on the roster. You have Dylan Pulliam that's still here, but he's a walk-on. And nobody's coming in. I don't think he's looking at anyone to fill that role, but it's something that Kentucky fans that I talk to, they want to have a Kentucky kid on the roster, because to me, it means more to these kids because they grew up in the state. You know, they understand the rivalry to Kentucky Louisville even more. And it's just, it's something that as a Kentucky fan and a Kentucky boy, I wish that there were one on the roster, but he goes after elite level talent, and I mean, really, there's nothing you can really do about it. But
I threw the discussion up in our closed Facebook group called The Spectrum, and they were giving Brad Calipari, you know, credit for being a Kentucky kid because he went to high school here in Kentucky. And a lot of the people feel that it's not a big deal to them, that there's not a native Kentucky kid with a scholarship, you know, on the team. I think that it helps with the pride of the program and the pride of the state. You know, it's nothing better than to hear, you know, from Owensboro, Kentucky, from Marion County, Kentucky, from Louisville, Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, when those kids get introduced to come into the game. You know, now I don't know how much playing time Pulliam's going to get, so the actual state of Kentucky is not going to be mentioned much, you know, when these kids come out to play.
And you look at a program like Kentucky, who's had guys like Richie Farmer, Cameron Mills,
Anthony Epps, Rex Chapman,
Darius Miller. I mean, you can go down the list. Every solid Kentucky team that's actually won a national championship, Final Four, they've had a Kentucky kid. You had Jared Polson recently. You know, fans, he was a fan favorite. Yeah, Brad Calipari, he lives in Lexington, but it's because John Calipari's head coach. He's not a Kentucky kid, but he's going to receive that ovation when he comes in just because of who he is. But it's not the same as the people that come and sit at Rupp Arena and they want to hear, you know, somebody check in that's a Kentucky native, because you want to see that kid do well.
Right, and then the other piece to that is, you know, people saying that the talent level has been down. You know, maybe as overall, but how can you say that Quentin Gooden couldn't play at Kentucky? I mean, he ended up starting point guard at Xavier, who went pretty nice and pretty far in the NCAA tournament. You had Mason Faulkner that played on the Northern Kentucky team that UK faced in the first round. And then looking into this coming season, you know, I mentioned Hollingsworth, Mr. Basketball, and the rebuttal was, well, he's only 3-star. Dominique Hawkins was a 3-star player when he arrived at Kentucky, and look at the effect that he had at UK.
To me, it's one of these things that it's where the state of Kentucky doesn't get the recognition that they deserve with recruiting, and I think that affects, because you have these coaches like John Calipari, they go after the elite level talent, and I think they look at sometimes you need to find the diamond in the rough. Because to build a program, you have to have guys that return. You can't just keep turning freshmen over and over and over again, because when they get to that point where the season begins, they don't know what to expect. So you have to have those guys, and the names you mentioned would have been, you know, foundation-laying recruits for these programs. And you can even go back to Shelvin Mack. Scotty
Hopson, Chris Lofton. You know, you look at these guys that you don't recruit, and then you play those guys. Chris Lofton was a thorn in Kentucky's side for 4 years. I mean, I think he averaged 20 25, 26 points a game against Kentucky.
That lit him up in Rupp Arena.
And everybody said he's too small, he's too slow. You know what? Not every athlete on the floor is going to be fast. Not every guard in the SEC is going to be 6'4", but nobody could shoot it like Chris Lofton.
That's right. And to me, Scotty Hobson, like you mentioned him, he was another one. He killed Kentucky.
Yeah.
The multiple times that when Bruce Pearl was at Tennessee and Tennessee beat Kentucky, Scotty Hobson was a big part of it. And those are the ones that if Calipari, I think, would have been at Kentucky, I don't see Hobson. I don't know if Hobson would have got out of the state. I just don't think at that time, because I think that was during the Tubby Smith, Billy Gillespie. Correct me if I'm wrong. I want to think that Hobson was before Cal really got to Kentucky. But to me, like Dominic Hawkins, you mentioned him as a 3-star. If he would have had maybe a better, if somebody could have pushed his name a little more, I think he was worthy of at least a 4-star, because I think that's what he played up to the level of. He competed with, look at the names he competed with for 4 years he was at Kentucky, and he started games his sophomore year.
And he played in the Jordan Brand game. Of course, he was on the Kentucky All-Star team that played in the Kentucky-Indiana series. One of the most athletic kids I've seen, but he was in the same class as Shelvin Mack. They played on that Kentucky All-Star team together, and you know, when they played their second game in Louisville, I couldn't believe that Louisville nor Kentucky recruited either one of those kids. Not that they didn't recruit them, that they didn't land them.
It's two guys that you look at that they got out of the state.
And Shelvin Mack is one of the only 2 Kentucky-born guys that's still playing in the NBA.
And to me, just thinking of him and Scotty Hobson, when you look at 2 programs like UK and UL, they should be at those schools. There's no way that, especially Tennessee, that's another Kentucky rivalry, that's where Hobson went. And you know, Shelvin Mack went to Butler. Mm-hmm. And I thought that he could have played at one of the elite level schools. But you're right, with a lot of players have slipped away that should have not slipped away.
Now, that'll bring us up to another point, and I'm sure that U of L, UK, Northern, Western, Moorhead, Murray, I'm sure they're all going to eventually offer the number 1 8th grader in America, Zion Harmon. Zion is currently playing on the 17U EYBL circuit, and he is absolutely destroying it. You know, Zion was an 8th grader at the KHSAA state tournament this year, the Sweet 16. Led his team. He actually hit the go-ahead shot to win the state final, and talked with a couple of people this week, and he, along with David Johnson, they've been invited to try out for the 16U U.S. national team. And Zion is, as you mentioned, is the youngest to ever get an invitation. Tell us a little bit about what you know or what you've heard about Zion Harmon.
You first made me aware of Zion Harmon with your showcase. That's what really got me looking. So then I start watching his YouTube videos, and I start doing some research on the offers that he has. And so far that I've confirmed, he has offers from Alabama, Missouri. His brother played at UC Santa Barbara for a couple of years. Tennessee and Kansas are starting to come into the picture a little. I expect Patino and Calipari both to get involved. I really do at some point.
Now, I'll tell you this. I interviewed Zion after his first game at the 4th regional tournament, and Zion said that his dream has always been to play at the University of Kansas for Bill Self. So Bill may actually have a little inside track there, and you guys, you can go to our Kentucky Sports TV Facebook page or our app, Kentucky Sports TV, and you can see that interview and you'll hear it for yourself. You know, that's not a rumor. That's what Zion said. So it would be devastating to me if Zion Harmon remains here for 4 years and gets away from the state of Kentucky to go to another state to play his college basketball.
And his recruitment is good for the state overall, just because it brings that national exposure, that spotlight to the state of Kentucky. To me, the state of Kentucky would get more events because you're going to have all kinds, like your showcase. There'll be a number of tournaments that want to come here because he's here. I think it's beneficial for the state, but you're absolutely right. If he goes somewhere besides the University of Kentucky, or Louisville, it would be devastating to see a kid that has the potential to remain at number one in that class to go elsewhere.
And as you and I talked about on the phone the other night, that's our goal at Kentucky Sports TV. Is we feel like that we've been on the back burner for the last few years as far as talent-wise. I think we have the talent in the state of Kentucky, but the kids they just aren't as exposed as the kids that play on the Nike and the AAU circuits in AAU. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get those kids out there. We want not only the state of Kentucky, but we want the whole nation to see how good, basketball is in the state of Kentucky. 25 years ago, nobody wanted to come to Kentucky to play basketball. You had the just local, you had Richie Farmer, Allen Houston, DeJuan Wheat, Tick Rogers, Rex Chapman, and every year the talent level kept increasing. And I don't feel that the talent level has gone away, but I feel like with as big as the AAU programs have gotten, that a lot of our kids leave the state of Kentucky to play on AAU teams in other states. So therefore, the people in the state don't get to see these kids until their high school seasons. And if you're on a high school team that's, sub 500, nobody's going to get to see you.
You're right. And you're talking about a state that lives and breathes basketball. And two established programs that, they're one of the top favorites every year to win national championship. And the level of talent they say is not good in Kentucky. Well, I disagree, like you. And I think this is what you guys are doing at Kentucky Sports TV, to me, is really great, because you're getting these kids exposed, and that's the number one goal, is get these kids noticed, because that's where the future of this state and everything is. The foundation has to be laid in recruiting, and you guys are getting some of these kids noticed. Like the rural areas of Kentucky, where I come from, there's talent, but it never gets seen. Well, you have Macy Morris playing at UK. She's from Bell County. Blair Green, Harlan County girl, she's playing. She's committed to Kentucky. There's talent in the state of Kentucky.
And then the other girl from Harlan, Brock, is that her name?
Yeah.
I watched her play in the All-A Classic and the state tournament. She's going to Tennessee Tech to play with Mackenzie Coleman, who's out of the 4th region down at Metcalfe County. And that may be one of the best 1-2 punches as a freshman combination in the country. I'm not saying just the OVC, but in the country. Mackenzie Coleman, 6'3", and she can bring the ball up the floor. She blocks shots, she scores. And Brock, I watched her come down and shoot from half court, a step past half court several times.
To me, it seems like the women's side is getting a whole lot more recognition in the recruiting trail. Well, it's time we get the men's
back to where it used to be,
because the women's side is getting noticed. Those talents are not slipping away and going elsewhere.
Right. So I don't, we were mentioning the showcase, Kentucky Sports TV, June the 9th, 10th, and 11th, we're having a showcase. And I was not familiar with a showcase. I wasn't familiar with the age levels that these parents and kids really get involved with basketball. But we've been covering some AAU tournaments, and, there's some second graders that makes you stop and have to go back and watch them again because they're that good. But after I talked to Zion's dad, he said that he's been exposed since he was in the 2nd grade. And I feel like that is the reason that he's the number one player in his class, because everybody has had a chance to watch him for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of a showcase. Had a discussion with a couple of people, and I was trying to tell them the difference in a showcase and a camp. A showcase is where you show your individual talent. In the state of Kentucky, as you mentioned, we're trying to expose those things, and we feel that, let's have a showcase. Let's rank the kids from the showcase. Let's publish that and see what happens. So I've actually picked up a lot of calls from Eastern Kentucky in the last week of kids coming to the showcase. So we encourage, we're still taking registrations. If you feel like that you're not getting exposure, that would be a good thing for you to attend. But we're going to take a break, and we're going to bring on 2 more guys that are from the Spectrum, our closed Facebook group that you just joined, and we're going to talk about a couple other things. And then after that, we're going to bring on former national Wildcat, national champion, Hashimu Evans, and we're going to catch up with him and let him talk about some things that he has going on. All right.